Hello everyone, my name is Rodrigo aka Gary and I'm gonna be your host today for this new episode of OTW podcast. And today we're going to talk about one of the most important, if not the most important topics, or I would say most desired things by students, at least by my students, that is vocabulary. In other words, to increase your vocabulary, meaning to bring more words to your vocabulary, knowing more words, right? Well, it's clear enough to tell that this is really something everyone who speaks the language is somehow after, right? Because, well, if you know the basic structure of a language, if you know many rules or all the rules, but you don't have enough words to operate it, quote unquote, operate it, that's never going to be efficient, right? Your communication is never going to be efficient. So it is, of course, something clear and understood and even good, right? To be tackling as a student, as a learner, and as, of course, someone who already knows the language well. Everyone, I think it's needless to say that everyone, myself included, is learning new words all the time, right? We learn new words even in our native language. And of course, the languages we're learning, it's not going to be any different, right? So I just gather up a few pieces of advice as far as improving your vocabulary is concerned, right? Well, the words of advice I'm bringing here is will be things that I have applied myself in my own life, in my own learner journey, my own learner context. If you guys know me well enough, you might be aware that I'm passionate about foreign languages. I'm learning new languages all the time. I mean, passionate is a euphemism. I would say I'm addicted to learning foreign languages. So I think I might have one or two things to teach on this subject, right? So without further ado, let's just jump into them. And the word of advice number one, piece of advice number one, right? Is make sure you are really using the words you're learning, okay? One of the things that I've seen in my career as a teacher, and I would say it even gets to bother me somehow, because I've been there, I've done that. This that I call big mistake, that is learning words that you will not use, or you won't use as much as you could, right? When you make a comparison with the energy you put into learning, not to mention the real useless and pointless words, right? There's a website. I won't mention its name, first because I don't remember it, and second because there wouldn't be any ethical to be pointing fingers, but there are websites that even bring a daily word, and again, I don't want to be unfair here, but to my experience, 9 out of 10 words are useless. I'm not going to bring any example here of useless words because it's so subjective, right? Because some words might be quite useful for some people and others probably not, okay? Of course, there's the gray area, the common area, I would call it, that are words that everyone uses no matter what, like table, like chair, like love, But of course, when it comes to vocabulary, there are specific words, right? Say, for example, you're a surgeon, if you're a surgeon or you work at any kind of with any kind of medicine, you might find quite helpful to know words such as scalpel, such as needle, or anything like that, or painkiller. A painkiller it's common vocabulary, but you know what I'm trying to say here, right? So basically, my point here is don't be selective when you're learning, when you're bringing new words to your brain. You're bringing information to your brain, so make sure you're putting things correctly inside it. I know, of course, there are some things we learn, and by learn I mean absorb, that we don't quite choose. We don't quite have power over it, and that's what I always say. We learn. This is very important, guys. we learn things by three, as far as I'm concerned, by three ways, and there's no fourth way. In my opinion, I can't really picture a fourth way. So here's the first one. Okay, there's no order here, but let's put it like this. First one is not good. This way of learning, of absorbing information, to your brain, which is the trauma, right? When you go through a traumatic situation, a situation in which you feel lots of pain, or you feel nervous for any reason, we tend to memorize these pieces of information related to this stressful situation, right? And this is not good, because that's actually a mechanism of defense by our brain. So yeah, you don't want to learn like that. You don't want to have to feel pain or any kind of stressful situation, stressful feeling, in order to put information inside your brain, right? So this is first one, that is, again, a traumatic experience, right? Pain, whatever. The second one is repetition, good and old repetition. Once you start, saying and repeating and day after day, which doesn't really mean repeating the word all the time. No, repetition means having a constant usage or a constant appearance of the words, or the word in your life. I would say in your life in general. So this is the second way. And the third way, which is about to be our second topic here, is association. Associations. I will put it in the plural. Our mind works so well with these 3 points here, in terms of results, right? Because you will, if you apply anything in your life that doesn't go through any of these, 3 things, and when I say traumatic experience, I'm not exactly talking about only negative things, to be honest. There might be I wouldn't say traumatic, but because when I say traumatic, I say like feelings. I was talking about feelings, sensations, things that are causing intense feelings or emotional reactions in our body, right? Which will inevitably end up taking information to our brain. That's, again, I said that, and I will put it again. It's a mechanism of defense by our body, right? But anyways, anything that doesn't go through these 3 vehicles, so to say, won't get through your brain. I'm saying this judging by my own experience. I've been learning lots of languages, studying, the past years, and I can tell you that you won't, if you don't apply any of the 3 vehicles that are again, feeling, repetition, or association. So talking about association, here's one very important fact about association, is that association can be fooled. You can fool your brain into associating things that do not relate to anything. For example, if you're walking through, if you're walking on the street and you just happen to bump into, an acquaintance, a friend or colleague or family member, you will immediately recognize that person, of course. And even if you guys don't interact by any means, if you saw that person and if you identify that person in the middle of other people, later on you will remember that you saw that person, because you know that person, right? But you can cross or even bump into as many people as you can in the street or wherever, that you won't precisely remember unless there is something to associate. Say, for example, you bump into a guy that is a real lookalike to your brother, for example, or sister, or anyone in your life, in your circle of people, of acquaintances. You will immediately, that experience will be, will occupy, naturally, of course, a place in your brain, at least for some time. So you guys see where I'm trying to get here, right? So association is really powerful when it comes to learning new words, in memorizing things. That doesn't go only for words. It works for names. If you struggle to learn, not to learn, but to really memorize names. Like someone introduces him or herself to you and says his or her name, and you just a couple of hours late, you don't remember that person. Do the following thing: try to associate the name of that person with someone you already you know. It doesn't matter if it is someone inside your inner circle or someone you ever got to meet in your life, be a school colleague or a girlfriend, boyfriend in the past, whatever. If you just bring that combination, if you picture that person you're meeting with the one that you met in the past, who has the same name, you won't forget it at all. So that's the very same thing with words. If you get you find the perfect way, the right way to associate the word you're learning, to associate the new word you're learning with words you already know, perfect. That's how things will get in. And speaking of association, another kind of association which I enjoy the most while learning languages is learning opposites. Of course, not all words have opposites, right? Not all words are adjectives, of course, thank God. Otherwise, communication wouldn't be possible. But but all the words that have an opposite or more, or an opposite, right? There can be only one opposite to a word, right? But anyways, I learn it. I make sure I learn it. Say, for example, I learn the word for dark in the new language I'm studying, the new language I'm learning. I will immediately want, or at least try to learn, the word for light. That is the opposite of dark. I learned the word for skinny or fat. I wanna know the other way around. You know what I mean? So this is so powerful because you already have a sentence to operate, quote unquote operate, when you learn opposites, right? For example, you learn dark. You're learning English, and then you learn the word dark, and then you go to a dictionary to look up the word for light, right? And you just learn light, and then you can say dark is the opposite of light. Light is the opposite of dark. It seems like a dumb phrase. It seems like an obvious sentence, but just make no mistakes. You're not learning when you're doing this. You're not working out your analysis capacity. No, you're working out your language skills, your new language, your skills in the new language, right? So yeah, that's something that it's ridiculous, right? Don't look for reason all the time when you're learning a language. I think I always say that, and I will just bring it again here. Anyways, so learning opposites, guys, it's something so powerful when it comes to internalizing, to memorizing, to really putting the word inside your brain, okay? So the other piece of advice that I would like to bring here is that, put the new words you learn in context as much as possible. All the time you're learning a new you learn a new language, you learn a new word, try to bring it to a context. And what do I mean by bring it to a context? There's only one way to do that: to make up a sentence with it. Again, don't care much about how philosophically correct it is, how logical the phrase is, provided that it's not provided that it's not grammatically wrong, it's okay. But of course, if you can just make up a sentence that will fit into your reality, into your environment, into your social, personal context, much better. Okay. So say for example you learn in English the English word for people who don't like spending money. I mean, yeah. Most people do like spending money, right? So people who are more reserved when it comes to their patron, to their money, to their finances, right? We have an expression in English that is tight-fisted. Okay, that is a person if you just close your fingers, like as if you were holding your wallet or money or whatever. So that's so clear, so self explained, right? But that's it. So a tight-fisted, right? Say you learn this, so you're intermediate level or basic level in English, or even advanced level. So you learn the word, the expression for people who don't like or who never or almost never spend money, right? Compared to quote unquote normal people. Say you learn this, so try to find an excuse or a cue that is an opening to call any of your colleagues or friends tight-fisted. You might be dramatic, you might just be sarcastic, or you might even be speaking something truth, that is true. But you will bring it to your context, because there will be a counter reaction from that person, like laughing or saying, yeah, you're right, or hey, where did you get it from? Like, I'm not tight-fisted, I spend more money than you do, for example. But then there will be a whole scenario, a whole scene of a interaction, of human and social interaction going on, that certainly will solidify the new expression here, not word. One interesting point to emphasize here is that when it comes to vocabulary, we're not only talking about isolated words. They're combos of words. They work as vocabulary as well. I'm not even mentioning phrasal verbs here, because I consider, phrasal verbs in the applicable the applicable context only one word, but that doesn't really matter here. But I'm talking about expressions as well. Sometimes we learn expressions like tight-fisted. It's not an adjective, because there's the noun tight. Sorry, the adjective tight and the noun fist, but kind of a verbalized, tight-fisted, someone who's got the fist tight, anyways, that's it. Talking about the context is not only talking about isolated words, but also talking about expressions. All right. So one more word of advice is create clusters, okay? If you're listening to this podcast so far and you're understanding me, it means that you're at least intermediate levels. You're intermediate level in English, at least, okay? So you probably know the meaning of the word cluster. If you don't, just look up for it in the dictionary. But basically, cluster is a group of words that usually go together. You don't necessarily have to use all of them, but if you're talking about a specific topic, you will have cluster of words, right? Say for example, we're talking about grammar, we'll have a cluster of words like adjective, noun, verbal tense, verbs, and so on, right? So basically, when you learn a new word, try to figure out if it belongs to any cluster of words, right? Try to see if there's any context to any other words in its orbit, so to say, right? This helps a lot because when you see other possible combinations for the new word you learned, or the new words you learn, it will enrich your communication ability, because if you bring up a topic, or if you say a word, you might end up bringing up a topic in which the cluster will be again, quote unquote, evoked. Like it will naturally be addressed by people around you, or even by yourself, or at least you will have to listen to people talking about it. And of course, if you don't want to talk much about it, or if you don't feel like you could talk more about the words related to the new word you learn, at least you will feel interested about understanding what people are talking about. So every time look for clusters, because remember the association thing I was talking about a few minutes ago? Yeah, that's precisely that. Clusters are, a cluster is a kind of associative thing, and it's of course so very, very, very important, so very useful when it comes to memorizing, right? Well, guys, I think it's needless to say that you have to maintain or figure out a way to maintain daily contact with the language you're learning, right? Otherwise, nothing's gonna work. Okay. I didn't even write it down on a script to talk about it right now, but I judge it so important, so very important, that I have to say it almost all the time. All the time I'm talking about learning things in the new language, right? You have to have a daily usage of that language, at least at the basic level, basic and pre-intermediate level, A1 to A2 level. Otherwise, it's going to be really, really hard, not to say impossible, and don't make yourself a fool, because even with similar languages like Spanish, for us Brazilians, Spanish is so similar that we might feel tempted to study it only once a week. Okay, if your intention with Spanish, for example, is just to read stuff, or perhaps even writing stuff, but mostly reading or watching movies, that might work out. But if your intention is the more active side of the language, that is speaking, that is writing, that is interacting with people, communication in general, you have all the odds against you. I'm sorry to be the one to break it down to you, okay? But that's it, right? So every single day, try to pop it up with a little bit of contact with the language, okay? And last but not least, is any one of you guys familiar with the concept of flashcards? Have you ever worked anything with flashcards or heard the term flashcards? Well, basically, flashcards are cards, right? In which you have two sides, right? Wow, that's new information, right? In which, of course, you have a card, and then the flip side, right? You have a translation or a secondary information. So in the context of learning new words, of course, the translation of the word, right? So you, making a long story short, you will have cards with words, and their translations on the other side. I wouldn't even say the flip side, because that depends on the approach. You might study vocabulary by looking at the word in its original language and then finding out the meaning, which is the more common way, I guess. Anyways, or the other way around. That is, how do I say this in the language I'm learning, for example, that is bringing it from your own language, or at least one language you already master. All right. So yeah, flashcards are basically that. The idea is the learning curve, right? What is the learning curve? I talked about that in other episodes, in other videos here on the channel. But anyways, it's precisely what I was just talking about, is that you have to have a daily contact with things, So if you learn a word right now, and if you learn a new word right now, you write it down, you do your homework, but that doesn't come with an immediate and immediate association, or a feeling, right? A stressful or a strong feeling by any means, or yes, that only leaves us with the third and last option, that is repetition, right? And repetition means repetition. That is bringing it again, again, and again, right? So by the next day, if you don't repeat it, if you don't bring it up again, chances are that you will end up forgetting the word, because you're not qualified to learn a new language, because you're dumb. Of course not, because you're a human being, because you have many other things to take care of, right? And your brain is only one, it will discard it as a useless piece of information if you don't repeat it, if you don't bring it again to show to your brain that this is something really important. Okay, so yeah, so basically this is the concept behind the flashcards. There's like a bunch of rules, but trying to make a long story short here, trying to wrap it all up, is that you will be your own judge. That's one very important fact, right? And the judgment will occur by how easy or hard telling the answer, in this case the translation or the equivalent word for the word or words you're learning, you have on a flashcard, and see how harder or easy it was for you. The ones that are harder, you will move to one side of consider that you're practicing, using a table. So the cards are on the table, on the table, and then the cards, when you flip it, you know immediately the meaning. You put on one side, right or left, it's irrelevant. And the ones that you find out being harder, you put on the other side. So turns out that at the end of the deck, say you have a deck with the 50 cards, that is 50 words. So you end up with the different mini decks from the harder to the easiest. You can have, and you will of course have sub-levels, that is very hard, I didn't remember, or I remember but kind of struggling, or neuter, I don't know if it was hard or easy, or easy or super easy, extra easy, and you will divide. So you end up with with piles of cards, from the hardest to the easiest ones, and then you will bring the hardest ones more often. You will practice with the hardest ones more often, unless they become the easiest ones, So there will be a moment, a point where all of the words in that deck will be pretty easy for you. You will immediately recognize them, Okay, I know it all sounds a little complex, but just go Google it, check on YouTube videos, and it will, with images and pictures, be much more specific, or even in Portuguese if you feel more confused than the average people here. But there's good news. There's an app called Anki, that you can use that in all all cell phones. That does it all for you. You just have to put new words. You just have to add new cards, quote unquote, to the app, right? That is the word, and then the translation or equivalent or whatever information revealer you feel like doing. And this is so very practical, because you can practice that on your computer, of course, and on your cell phone as well. So that's just great for you to learn new words, especially those that you don't, that you need to learn, and you end up not finding a way to learn, and then you're constantly surprised by the fact that you cannot retain that word. I assure you that if you just bring it every day, be that through Anki, be that through a notebook in which you're writing the words, and don't get me wrong, notebook in English is only the piece of paper, of pages, paper pages in which you write things, okay? It's not computer, don't get it wrong, okay? Anyways, so you have it written on a piece of paper or notebook or on your computer, doesn't matter. If you're bringing this every day to your attention, right, you will end up memorizing it, no matter the word, okay? No matter the word. We all learn new words all the time, new diseases, and most of them with very strange names, unusual names, some of them with hard pronunciation, right? And everyone memorizes them when they're breaking up in the news every day. I see that from of course young people. Yeah, they're the kings and queens of memorization. Yeah, no surprise. To the elderly, even the old people. My grandpa, 86 years old, he's learning new things every day. So there's no excuse to say like, oh, I'm old. I don't, I'm no longer a young guy or a girl or woman or man. And I'm not good as I used to be before. And that's it. I hope it has helped you guys. And hope to see you guys in the next episode as well. Thank you so very much. My name is Rodrigo, aka Gary, and see you soon. Take care. Bye.